Today we're going to be making a beautiful Sicilian cassata cake. The origins of this cassata cake has an influence around Arabic and Spanish influence. There are three parts to making this beautiful cake. We have a lovely sponge cake that we prepare in advance, and we make a gorgeous ricotta filling that we can also use other things as well, like cannoli, and then we make a gorgeous glaze on top. So we're going to start by preparing the sponge cake. Now with the sponge cake, you can make the sponge, which is what I highly recommend, but if you don't have time, I would encourage you to find one that's already made. Please don't go to the supermarket and get the sponges from there. They are way too sweet. But you could definitely go to a bakery and speak to the baker and ask him or her to make one fresh for you. That would give you a better outcome. So what we've got here is a sponge cake that we've prepared in advance. We have one recipe for the sponge. We've actually baked it in 2 tins just for ease, but if you've only got 1 tin, bake it in the 1 tin and cut it in half. So this cake is now cooled, and we're going to put a beautiful layer of liqueur on the sponge. So I'm using a vermouth today. It's a Cinzano Bianco. But because we've got some orange influence in the ricotta cream, you could also use a little bit of Cointreau as well. So we've got some vermouth here, and with a brush, a pastry brush, you could lightly brush the sponge on both sides. And it's always nice to, I think, make this cake the day before, so you allow the flavors to develop that are going to be added, particularly to the ricotta cream, and it'll also soften the sponge a little bit. So we do actually put the vermouth on both sides. So we just keep going with that until it's nice and moist. And the cake does need a little bit of time to set, so be quite liberal with the alcohol. Of course, if you don't want the alcohol, I would suggest that maybe you could put a little bit of orange juice in there, or just keep it plain. But the alcohol does add a lovely depth of flavour. So there we go, we've got the vermouth on the sponge cake now, and we just put that aside. And then we move on to making the ricotta cream. So I've got some very fresh ricotta here that I've got from a delicatessen. And we're going to start by adding some sugar to the ricotta, and we will blend that together just with a hand mixer. You could use a large mixer if you want. And we just combine the sugar and the ricotta together. Now we don't want the ricotta too sweet. Because if we make the ricotta cream too sweet, we are going to be putting a layer of icing on top as well. So we just need to make sure we don't overdo the sugar in the ricotta cream. And then to that, we actually add some of the beautiful nuts and spices, which is really the Arabic influence of the invasion into Sicily. So what we have here is some gorgeous chopped pistachio nuts, some very good quality dark chocolate, which has been chopped, some cinnamon. We're going to add a little bit of vanilla. Now I make my own vanilla. So in here I've got some vanilla pods in vodka, and I've had this sitting in here for a good 12 months now. So it's turned into a lovely vanilla. Obviously you could use vanilla from the supermarket, that's okay. And then we are going to add a beautiful citrus element here, which is some gorgeous candied orange and lemon, which we're going to be using from Singing Magpie produce from the Riverland in South Australia. It is a high quality candied fruit. So we're going to add all that in as well. Now with this mixture, you could pretty much add whatever you want. So this is a combination that I love, and it works really well. And you could actually just make this ricotta cream and have it with some peaches. You could definitely pipe this into some cannoli, So there's so many things that you could do with this ricotta cream. Today we're actually going to make it as the filling for the cassata cake. And that's pretty much ready to go. So that doesn't take too long. I am going to taste it just to make sure that the flavors work. And I'm sure it will. Really good, really good. So what we do now is we add the filling onto the cake. So I'm just going to grab some of this. There's quite a lot of filling here, but it is a decadent celebration cake, so I say go to town on it. Okay. Just need to be careful that it doesn't dribble too much around the sides, because we'll fix it up when we put the sponge on it. So we grab the sponge and we pop it over the top, push it down a little bit, and then we get a palette knife and we give it a nice clean up around the sides. Make sure that it looks really pretty. You don't have to be too precious. This is something that you've made from home, and but I think that's actually looking quite good now. So we're just going to pop that to the side, and that looks great. So we're going to move on to making the icing now. And we've got some pure icing sugar here. I like to use the pure icing sugar, and we need to make sure we sift it because it's not as soft as, say, the soft icing sugar, which actually has other elements into that. So we've just got some beautiful pure icing sugar. We're going to add a couple of tablespoons of water to start with, and then we'll see if we need any more after that, because we don't want it too runny. And we're going to mix that together and see how we go. Now, the traditional Sicilian cakes that you'll see in Sicily have actually got a layer of green and white marzipan, and it covers the whole cake. And then they decorate it with some lavish fruits and candied fruits. As an everyday celebration cake that you would make from home, I wouldn't encourage you to do the whole marzipan layer. It's quite rich. That's why we're going with just a really nice thin layer of white icing. And that won't be as sweet as probably what you see in Sicily. But if you do go to Sicily, I would encourage you to try the one with the marzipan. It actually is quite beautiful. All right, that's come together quite well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pour the icing over the top. And we kind of pop it into the middle of the cake. We do want it to drip down the sides, but we want it to drip down just a little bit slower. Okay. So as you can see, that was only a couple of tablespoons of water. I didn't use the rest. It does depend on the temperature of the day in terms of how much water that you need. So what we're going to do now is just slowly push this out to the outer edges. And this cake really holds well for a good 3 days. So if you make the sponge cake, make it the day before in the morning, and then you could definitely prepare this cake in the afternoon and let it sit in the fridge overnight, and it will taste divine. So now I'm just going to push it out to the sides a little bit to let it naturally fall. And then with the decoration, you could decorate it in any way that you want. Traditionally, you would put some candied fruits on top. So what I've got here is some candied orange, because we've put some candied orange inside the cake. You could decorate it with pretty much whatever you want, and we will decorate this in a moment, but I just wanted to show you this to begin with. And like I said, make this the day before. It's a crowd pleaser, it's not too sweet, and it's a beautiful festive cake. So this is my Sicilian cassata cake.